Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Careers That Save the Planet with F4S, which we are running today to celebrate International Earth Day. My name is Neelam, and I'll be hosting the session this morning. Students will hear from inspiring role models who have very impressive and unique careers, which all contribute to protecting and preserving our planet and the environment. And we'll be hearing from them very shortly. There are loads of careers out there, and we would like to make you aware of these careers. So first of all, I want to say a massive thank you to our guest speakers for joining us and for volunteering your time. We really, really appreciate it. And we're really looking forward to hearing all about you. So we have Harry Crispin, Kelly Hollings and Sarah Bradford. Now, Harry, correct me if I'm wrong, but Harry is an energy and environment analyst at Hilton.
That's right.
And Kelly is a project officer at Northumberland Wildlife Trust Limited. And Sarah Bradford is an environmental manager at Hitachi ABB Powergrids. So a really nice variation, but you're all doing great things for our planet. So without further ado, we're going to hand over straight to you, Harry, if that's okay. So over to you. What is it that you do? Can you explain a little bit about your role to the students and how do you protect the planet? What does your company do to preserve the environment? And also just kind of give us an overview of your career journey. So how did you start off? How did you get to where you are? And everything in between. And students, you can ask as many questions as you like. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for joining the call. My name's Harry. I work for Hilton. I'm sure most of you probably heard of Hilton as a brand. We have hotels around the world. Not everyone knows it, but we've got a massive carbon impact. So every time you stay in one of our hotels and use the TVs, use the lights, but even when you use the aircon to cool down your room or to heat the room, we're using a colossal amount of carbon from energy resources. So my job is to essentially view that and try and make it really easy to understand. Now we've got over 5,000 properties all over the world, so there's a lot of data and a lot of information. So what I do in my role is I process that information and try and make it understandable to the high level of the business. We also strategize and try and find opportunities. So we're always looking at new technologies and seeing what we can bring in to reduce that environmental impact of our rooms. So that's the broad overview of it. How I got into it is a little longer, and I'll go into this. I'll go into this now. So my screen should be sharing. Hopefully, there. Can I just get a nod from you guys on the? Fantastic, awesome. So I'm going to start. Before I do my journey, I'm just going to start with 3 key tips, they've all really helped me to get into this position where I am now. And the first one is follow your passion. Now you might not have a specific passion, and it might just be something that you're really good at. But I think all throughout your journey at school and then moving forward, the key for me has been to follow that. So for the environment, I was always getting involved in environmental groups wherever possible. And you'll be surprised where these sort of opportunities take you. Which brings me quite nicely on to the second tip is always take opportunities and always find them. And you might not see them as opportunities. It might not be like a placement or a bit of work experience. Opportunities can come through anything, doing a presentation, even doing some learnings as well. And again, I said it's not always work experience, but try and find as much work experience as you can. You develop most when you're really outside your comfort zone, and I think it's a real key thing that I've followed is always take opportunities. Finally, as well, I think it's really important to be yourself. I remember when I was at school, not too long back, and I was, in meetings like this, and I was thinking, nah, I don't get this. I'll never get to that point, and these things will never happen to me. But honestly, just take the opportunities and they start coming. But always be yourself. Don't feel forced to be someone who you're not. And I think especially if you're passionate about something, that will really come through and people will start to listen to your points. And you all have the power to sort of change the world really. And never underestimate yourself. And if you bring that passion through, you'll go far and these opportunities will arise. So quickly, I'm going to go through my journey. So my passion for environment started when I was, around 16, 17, so not too young. Started writing to my local MP. That's, proving my passion. I went on a trip abroad to Iceland with World Challenge. I'm not sure if you all still have World Challenge at school, but self-funded trip to Iceland. And I was able to see everything that I learned at geography. I was able to see in person, and it really sort of changed my outlook. So I did that a little bit further after school, where I wasn't exactly sure what to do and whether to go into university. But while I was away doing a bit of traveling and seeing these natural resources, the passion became clear, and I knew that I had to study it further. So I chose to study geography at university. And this is where I really started taking those opportunities and really started putting myself out there. So a few examples of the photos. I got some work experience with a local organisation that's supporting sustainable energy. That was literally by reaching out to local organisations and asking if there was some unpaid work that I could do in the meantime of my studies. And you can do the same at school. It's not just university which has these opportunities. I became the boxing club president as well. Again, not related at all to the environment, but taking opportunities like that really develops skills. And when you come to interviewing for jobs, that really, really helps. Yeah, I couldn't talk to schools without saying you've got to work hard. So at university, I worked really hard, and opportunities sort of present yourself from that. So I was chosen to sort of do my dissertation research, which is a big research project that you do at university in Uganda with a local environmental organisation. And again, so from working hard, it sort of opens up those doors. And finally, bottom right, you'll see Extinction Rebellion. So I think a very well-known environmental group. Some people love them, some people don't. But I've always sort of kept true to my values and been involved in environmental groups. And you'll be surprised how many learnings you can take from a setting like that into the professional setting. So yeah, the key message I suppose from this is just get out there, take opportunities, and it will really help you develop. And when you come to interview for jobs like this, you will really start to stand out. And finally, Hilton. So I was very fortunate that at the end of my university, I found an internship within the energy and environment team, and applied for that internship, and yeah, fortunate enough to get it through all my previous experience. So I can't stress how important it is to engage in that enough. So yeah, I've sort of mentioned a bit about my job, but a lot of it is presenting on the environment and bringing teams to understand what climate change is and how they can work towards it. We do a lot of work on new technologies, as you can see there, a new toilet flushing system. It's not the most glamorous, but it's amazing that in a company like Hilton, if I can find this one piece of technology and roll it out across 5,000 properties, I can have a bigger impact than I could ever have, personally from saving water at home. So that's what I really love about the role. And finally, it's a great company to work for, and there's plenty of opportunities. In the top right, we're lucky enough to go to South Africa with work to see a new solar panel rollout, and then bottom right, we do a lot of work with charities as well. So yeah, it's a fantastic job to be in. We have a fantastic impact, and the way I got there was following my sort of three main suggestions for you guys. I'm got one more slide as well, a bit more about Hilton. We essentially all work towards the 2030 targets that we have, and that's halving our environmental impact and sort of doubling our investment in our social impact. So I won't go into too many details exactly what we do, but that's our overarching focus to try and reduce that environmental impact and really support our communities in which we are placing all around the world. Now I know I've been very brief. I don't want to take up too much of the other speakers' times. I'm very happy to take further questions on that. But yeah, before I go, I'll just remind you of the three main things. Just follow your passion, whatever it be, take your opportunities, and always be confident in yourself.
Thank you so much, Harry. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. I'm sure we do have lots of questions. I certainly do. But we might pause for the moment, Harry, if that's okay. So guys at home, please do add your questions to the chat box, and we'll come back to you, Harry, if we have some time at the end. Hopefully we will, because I would love to ask some more questions. Okay, so Sarah, over to you. So same questions. How did you get started? What is it that you do? How do you protect the planet, and so on? Thanks.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Wow, Harry, what an act to follow. Thank you for having me this morning. So I work for a company called Hitachi ABB Powergrids, and what we do is we work within the energy sector. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, smashing. Yeah, so I work within the energy sector, and what we do is we provide sustainable energy solutions to the likes of the National Grid and SSE within the UK, and we are a global company. What I do, my job is environmental specialist. So that basically means that I try to keep the company right in terms of key environmental risks. Harry's already mentioned about climate change, energy, but also there's other things that I do as part of my day-to-day job, and that is to make sure, because we're working predominantly in the construction industry. So what we're doing is we're building new substations, we're refurbing old substations to make sure that we can still power energy throughout the UK. So there's a lot of environmental risks associated with that, such as land contamination, water, making sure we don't pollute the water for now or for future generations, making sure that we can harness sustainable energy technologies, as I've already mentioned, waste, making sure that we're doing the right thing with regards to our waste, etc. So it's multifaceted, the job I do. So basically, as an environmental manager, I cover various disciplines, including ecology. I go out and do ecology surveys. So a lot of the projects I've worked on, we've come across great crested newts that you might be aware of or heard of. We've come across bats. So we've got to make sure, we've got to be mindful that we protect these, we don't impact on them. So there's a lot of surveying that I have to do. So we use a lot of science and technology in the job that I do to find solutions to the challenges that we face. So that's a little bit about who I work for now, what I do on a day-to-day basis. In fact, if I can just very, very quickly just share my screen. So I can just show you some of the environments that I work in. These are the key environmental risks that I've mentioned about. So air pollution, making sure we don't pollute the air, don't pollute the land, don't pollute the water. And obviously we've got a big challenge with the waste to make sure that we minimise the waste that we generate. But where we do generate waste, we do the responsible thing, because we are a very responsible company. So that's just giving you a bit of a flavour. So it is multifaceted. That's some of the environment I get to work in on a day-to-day basis. I can tell you no 2 days is any the same, and I get to work in some beautiful parts of the country. But it's not all glamour, as I say. Some construction sites can be very dirty and very noisy and very smelly. This is just giving you a flavour of sort of the electrical, the substations that I work in. I've put this photo in because I've been in this business for over 21 years. I've worked for the government. I worked for the Ministry of Defence. I've worked in private sector as I'm working now. This is something I got to do. I was doing audits, because a lot of the work that I do is auditing, going out, making sure people are doing the right thing for the environment. And when I worked for the Ministry of Defence, the RAF, they took me up in a, not very sustainable, as you can imagine, but they took me up in a fighter jet as a thank you, because I got them through a major environmental audit. So there is glamour, but there's also not so glamorous elements to the job. But it takes you, well, it can take you anywhere in the world. I've been working in the UK, I've worked abroad. Fantastic. I mean, it's the best job ever. So I just wanted to give you a flavour of some of the environments you can get to work in. But as I say, it's not all glamour, but it can be. So that's my job. That's what I do. How I got into it, always been passionate about the environment. When I was at school, I wouldn't say I was very academic, but I worked hard. And as Harry says, follow your passion. And I fully advocate that. So I did A-levels, environmental science and geology and geography, then went on and did a degree in environmental science, which again, you get to go abroad to do some of your studies, your survey work, your geology work, etc. And I've been so fortunate for the last 21 years, as I say, I've been able to get some really good jobs within the environmental sector. I was even an environmental regulator working for the Environment Agency, where you go out and you regulate to make sure that people are doing the right thing, that are not polluting the environment, etc. So that's just giving you some idea of what I do, who I work for. As I say, best job in the world as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, hopefully that's given you a flavour. And if you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Can I just quickly ask, because I know Harry, you mentioned that you developed your passion, around 16. Sarah, how about you? I know you said you've always been passionate, but was there a particular moment where you developed this passion?
Certainly when I was a child, because my parents were fantastic, always taking us on holidays within the UK, certainly going up to the Lake District and places like that. And that's how my passion, certainly for ecology. I mean, I never, when I graduated, I didn't go into ecology. I wish I had, but I decided to become a general environmental manager so that I could go into, I could work in different streams, facets of the environmental management. But yeah, when I was about 8 or 9, definitely knew then that's what I wanted to do.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thanks again, and we'll pause and we'll come back to you if hopefully if we have some time for some questions. So Kelly, over to you. Last but certainly not least, another really impressive background and profile. Been sort of snooping on LinkedIn and whatnot. So over to you. What is your story, and can you share next, please?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay, everyone?
Yeah,
perfect. I will attempt to share my screen if that works, but I work for Northumberland Wildlife Trust. So we're slightly different to the other two speakers, which I guess is great. So there's variety there. So we're an NGO, so non-government organisation. We're a charity. Northumberland Wildlife Trust is one of 47 different wildlife trust charities throughout the UK. And I've worked with them for 15 years, which is so scary, but I completely love what I do, and I'm really proud to have done it as well. So very similar to the other two speakers. I grew up in Devon. I was the child that went out walking my dog and looking for deer and plodging about in ponds, and just knew that this is what I wanted to do. So I was really lucky, and I think once you know what you want to do, then you're kind of halfway there. That's kind of almost the biggest challenge in life, is knowing where you want to go. And I would also say, I guess my bit of advice for careers is what I'm always telling my children is, just do what makes you happy. So I would certainly say that working for Northumberland Wildlife Trust is wholesome. It's kind of more of a vocation, but you're never going to get rich out of it. So, but to me, I'd rather really enjoy my job. So I guess to me, it's important to do what makes you happy. I knew as well that to get into this kind of career, I needed to get a degree in environmental science. So work towards that. And then to get a job in conservation, it's always been a challenge. So my advice again is to volunteer. I had to do at least 2 volunteer placements after graduating to get the experience needed to get my first foot on the ladder to get my first job. And the first job was just a 6-month placement. So it just takes a long time to get there. But honestly, you so will if that's what you want to do. So let me try and share my screen. It didn't quite go to plan earlier, but I will very much try and give you just a little bit of a chat about where my what my job is at the moment. How are we doing? Is that visible to people?
Yes.
Perfect. So I work for Northumberland Wildlife Trust, as I said. You have an awful lot of funded projects within the Wildlife Trust, and Restoring Ratty is one of them. So Restoring Ratty is a project to bring water voles back to Kielder, which is in Northumberland, north of Hexham. How is that helping save the planet? I mean, water voles have declined massively over the years, 97% decrease of water voles, and they're one of our native mammals. And to us, it was very important to bring them back to Kielder, as they're a big part of the biodiversity, big part of the food chain, and they certainly belong there. So that's the title of our project. Partnership project, as you'll find if you go into the world of conservation, you all have to work together in order to access land that you want to access, and also to boost up your funds. So it's a partnership project between Forestry England, Tyne Rivers Trust, which is another environmental charity, and Northumberland Wildlife Trust, and we're completely funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund. I don't always put this slide in, but this really is, lots of people, especially people that were probably listening right now, wonder why on earth we're called Restoring Ratty, and I completely understand why you would ask that question. And Ratty is the name of a water vole in the Wind in the Willows book that used to be very well read and very well known about, but is much less so now. So that explains why we're called Restoring Ratty, because we're bringing water voles back to England, back to Kielder. So I'll very briefly run through this. I know we don't have lots of time, but in order to create a sustainable population of breeding water voles, we had to kind of trap some from areas where they were already, and then we bred them ready for release. So I would say that this project, although it's coming to an end, has been fantastic because it's got science in it, it's got pure conservation in it, and it's got education and engagement in it, which, to be honest, is completely typical of a project funded by the lottery. So just a few little pictures. This was us when we were out catching some water voles to breed from right at the beginning of our project. These are some breeding pens. We used Derek Gow, who is very vocal at the minute. I would well imagine you've heard of Derek Gow because he's talking about beavers a lot at the moment, but he breeds water voles for us. And this is us releasing them into Kielder, which I can talk about forever, but a brief picture will have to do for now. And there's a little R moment. That is a picture of your typical water vole, of which we've released just over 1,800 back into Kielder. So I would say we've definitely managed to kind of reintroduce them. And I just wanted to say as well, rather than just talk about my project, is if you get a career in conservation, one, you're going to have to volunteer to get the skills and experience you need. And two, once you are lucky enough to have your career in conservation, really, really value your volunteers. Like for me, it's like the best part of my job is working with volunteers. We've got 46 people registered to help us with Ratty, and they all feel a big part of it, and they are a big part of it. And I just think it's really important to mention them, to realise how many hours of work they give us and how much I rely on their support, really. So really look after your volunteers if you get a job in the career conservation sector, and people are always happy to help you for free. Last slide is just an engagement slide. So these are children helping us capture water voles from the North York Moor. So a lot of conservation projects is not just doing your pure conservation, but it's also sharing it with people. Thank you. I've whizzed through that, but that's me.
Well done, thank you. You all stuck to the times. I'm really sorry if you can hear that. One of our alarms is going off outside my my building. So I've got loads of questions. Everyone at home and in classrooms, if you have any questions for any of the speakers or generic ones, do bob them in now because we have got a little bit of time. So all three of you are incredibly passionate about what you do. That really comes across, and that's wonderful. However, a lot of young people are still figuring out what they're actually passionate about. What advice would you give to young people who don't really know where they want to go, when they're a little bit stuck with their destinations? Any advice? Should we go to you, Sarah, first, and then we'll go to Harry and then Kelly?
Well, yes, I was in a similar position. I was fortunate in the respect that I kind of knew at 8 that I wanted to go into the environmental field, but it's dabbling. So I did the same as everybody else in the respect that I joined some organisations, some Wildlife Trust, etc., and did some volunteering just to see if this is really what I want to do. Because it would have been awful if I'd gone ahead and gone to university and then decided this really isn't for me. So volunteering is it's such a good way to establish if this is really for you, if this is what you want to do. So that would be my advice.
That's great advice. Harry, how about you?
I think for me, I've said I started getting the passion at 16, but at the time I didn't know it, you don't really know it at the time. You just have an interest in something. It's not like it doesn't present itself as a career passion. So definitely don't panic if you don't have that yet. And that's why I sort of tried to say, just follow what you're good at, because that one day will become a passion. It sort of just grew on me really, and more learnings. And, I've never thought of it as a passion until I guess I started working here at Hilton. But I think, as well, I think definitely reframe volunteering, because I think when I was at school, I thought of it as basically unpaid work. I had a Saturday job and my time was really important to me, and I never did any volunteering at a very young age because I just thought, I'm not getting paid for it essentially. But now, from the stuff that I did at university, it's not it's not an unpaid job. It should be something that you're really interested in, and don't do it if you don't have an interest. There's so many organizations, so many local groups as well. So it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a big company like Oxfam in a charity shop, and it doesn't have to be a well-known organization, which you can easily find online. It can just be in your local community. And I think with the final thing I say, don't want to hog too much time, but the final thing I say is sustainability isn't just, it's not just climate change. It doesn't have to be just climate change. It doesn't have to be just conservation. It can be equality, and it can be development, and it can be broad, and it's all part of, that same overarching sustainability. So I think any sort of interests and activities in the area help. It doesn't have to be organized. Just go out with your friends and litter pick and whatnot, and it's something. It will build a community, and it builds organization skills. it can be anything, honestly. Yeah, so just do something, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Really good advice, and it's kind of just putting yourself out there, really, isn't it?
It's exactly it.
Yeah.
And I remember everyone started talking about, networking, and I never really got what networking is, and I never really understood it. But it's literally just talking and meeting people and doing things. So don't be scared of that term either if you hear that.
How about you, Kelly? Any final advice?
Yeah, I think I'm going to come to more of these talks because you learn loads. But I would probably also say as well, I said in my talk that I always knew I wanted a career in conservation, and that might be slightly daunting to people, but I think that's in hindsight. I think maybe at the time I didn't know that. And so my advice would be maybe just follow your hobbies. If for example, if you are a bird watcher and that's what you enjoy, you can make a career out of that. You could be an ornithologist. So just don't think that just because you view it as a hobby, it has to stay as a hobby. You can make careers out of things that you really love.
Okay, there are quite a lot of questions in the chat. I know Neelam has an alarm going on in the background and she's going to actually have to leave us all, guys. We haven't got much to go, but I'll just take over for the last few questions, if that's okay. So are there any obvious career routes that you can take in conservation? Anyone?
I mean, Kelly, I guess, is conservation, and Sarah probably a bit more than me. But don't get stuck up on career routes. It doesn't have to be A, B, C. Again, like you can have a wider route. You can just study what you're interested in for now, especially at university. You don't have to make big decisions. I find with geography, it covered so much, for instance, and you might not know exactly where you want to go, but study something, and there's so many opportunities at university, or even if you start working, there's so many local groups that you can still get involved in it. You don't have to have that A to B, but I can't really talk on the conservation side.
Kelly, do you want to take over on that one then?
Yeah, I would say that conservation is so incredibly broad, and when I began my career, what I wanted to do and what I'm doing now are really different. So when I began, I wanted to plant trees, and I wanted to do the practical side of conservation. So I did my chainsaw course and my pesticide course and my brush cutting course, and was really practical and hands-on, and went on dry stone walling courses, and I wanted to manage nature reserves, which I did for a little while. And then once you get into the job of conservation, it's amazing where it can take you. So a project like this one wasn't something I wanted to do at all, because I must admit, when I was younger, being sociable and talking to people was really scary. But now I really love sharing what I do with other people, and I would say that that's probably the way I'd quite like my career to go now, is to do more engagement and to get more people out in the countryside. So it can begin very broadly, and then once you're in the career of conservation, there are so many avenues which you can go down.
Okay, well, I'm afraid we have now come to the end of today's session. I know there's some questions there that perhaps we didn't get the answer to, but if you don't mind, I can ask you to respond to them later, and we can send them back to the teachers if that's okay. It's been a really interesting session for me. It's opened my eyes a lot of ways, and I've got a 16-year-old daughter who's going to go out and volunteer to do lots of things as well. So thank you to all the teachers. We know you're on a tight schedule because this is within your timetable, and hopefully your pupils will have enjoyed the session and learned something today. And I can see the comments coming in. And yes, it is a short session, but don't forget, everybody can book your own session, and you can invite any of these lovely speakers to come back and talk more in depth to your school if you do want. A big thank you to Harry, Sarah and Kelly for joining us today, and I'm sure you will be called on again to come forward. So thanks everybody, and we shall see you all again, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck everyone.
Yeah, good luck. See you.
Bye.
Thanks everyone.